Children from blocks all around the world. I am my block's strongest man with a terrible sickness and voice today, but we're here anyway with my esteemed co-host, Isaac from Hunger Smash Fitness. And we have two incredible guests for you today. Justin Kealhofer, who just competed at America's Strongest Man 2021 and is the former world record holder in the overhead Mauser block press, and LeRoy the Machine Walker, world record holder in the strict curl. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today.
Thank you, guys.
Pleasure to be here.
All right, so why don't we start off by you guys introducing yourselves. LeRoy, you want to talk a little bit about your background, maybe how you got into powerlifting, what first got your attention there, and kind of your love for powerlifting?
I think I got into powerlifting when I started working out with my uncle, who's a bodybuilder. I started working out with the Easy Curl bar because I wasn't strong enough. I think I was 11 years old, started working out with Easy Curl bar. I just started kind of developing the love for, learning how to work out and different stuff like that. As I got through high school, it helped me out. Our weight program was pretty intense with football, wrestling, and then, baseball. And just played, all three sports throughout high school. Just kind of fell in love with lifting. We had powerlifting, but it wasn't like sanctioned meets or anything like that. Then I played a little bit of, played 4 years of college ball. As far as the powerlifting side of it, didn't really have the same kind of strength coaching for powerlifting as far as the knowledge of how to spot, wrap knees and whatnot that I had in high school. So I still did, my basic cleans, squats, deadlifts and stuff like that. And then just kind of fell in love with the bench. And then after, my football days were done, if it wasn't for the fact, I'd like to say if I was, 6'5", 350, I'd probably be in the NFL right now. But since I'm, all 5'11" and run like a 5 flat 40, I think the NFL drafts are missing out on an opportunity. But so with that being said, I maintained, a competitive bench press. I didn't have to worry about really so much having spotters or coaches or whatnot, because after, college, I transitioned to, like most people, most athletes, you transition to a commercial gym, your LA, I was in California at the time, so LA Fitness, 24-hour fitness and whatnot. So it was easy, to have bench Mondays and contests and, competitive and stuff like that. I just kind of stuck with it. And then, as I got closer to 600, I felt, 600, I was closer to that than I was 550. And then I hit 6 and it just, okay, 650 seems closer than 6. So I just kind of stayed with it. Then wanted to make it a mission to go after, 700 pounds. And it's kind of the mission I was on. I had a couple injuries, as most of us do along the way, and stayed competitive. And, I probably took on, as I became pro, you start taking a little bit of the pro money. You start becoming obligated to go to meets. Once you sign up for that meet, you take that plane check, you take that hotel. It's kind of hard to scratch from a meet. So I think from the competitive side, I probably took on more meets towards the end of the career than I probably should have, because then you get on a timetable where you're doing the contest kind of no matter what. So you find yourself healing enough to train just to compete, but not healing enough to go after, records or stuff like that. And then, I was fortunate enough to switch a couple sponsorships up. I was able to, form a great partnership with Ghost, help develop some products, help promote some products. And the great thing about that was that transition to strict curls, I had a non-compete as far as I didn't have to maintain an elite or world ranking as far as bench press. And then, I had some friends just kind of say, hey, maybe you should give strict curl a try. And we didn't really have a setup at Big Techs where I work out. So I just started, Ghost kind of supplies you to their main lifters with a piece of equipment. So I was supplied with an incline that was pretty set up. But I was like, I could probably I can use this to still incline. I can use it to set up, strict curl or heavy curls and stuff like that. So it just kind of fell in place. And as I started working out and kind of felt out the lay of the land and saw what some of the numbers were, my all-time mission was I recognized the American record, but I said the world record doesn't seem impossible if I give it 1 or 2 years and really just focus. And as I started training, I knew eventually I was going to break the American. And so I started going back and forth with the owner of Ghost, Tim. I was able to convince him, hey, I think I'm going to be a powerhouse in this sport. So we came together and collaborated, and they built a strict curl platform, which was an honor because I hadn't even competed in the sport yet. I think I was one of the few people that had a well-known, respected company build out a strict curl platform. And then I entered my first competition, did good, won, went for the American record, missed it, came back my second meet, went for the American record on a third attempt, got it. And then, just by luck of the draw, I just kept training my ass off. And at this last meet I went to in August, I wanted to re-break my record. And then I was debating if I was going to just, for publicity, make a run at the world record. And so I told myself I could go. And as far as the numbers, I opened at 220, something real conservative. Then I went 230. I think I went 231. And then I could either go 230 or 240, which neither one would have been anything significant. They would have just rebroke the American record, but it wouldn't really move me up in the world rankings. And it definitely wasn't a shot at the world record. So I figured I'm going to save my energy. And if I'm going to make a good attempt and a miss and make some headlines and get some, notoriety, because I knew with my training that 249 was going to come. I just didn't think it was going to happen in August. I really wanted to set it at the Arnold coming up in March. But, I was feeling good that day. I changed some particular things as far as the way I warm up and activate my CNS. And, it just paid off. And, luck of the draw and hard work and God willing was able to set the world record. And immediately there was a lot of controversy because I had people and my sponsors posted it. And I was getting, I'm sure you get this in Strongman too. I was getting all these keyboard warriors taking snapshots and, by my standards, those are official plates, but I'm not sure because I can't see them, but there's no way that's 249 pounds. So I called my sponsor. I said, hey, you know what? I don't want everything to seem fraudulent. We're going to sort out all these plates, weigh them on the scale with the bar, show all the plates. So I had to make like a 15-second video that you can actually still see on Go Strong. They put up a, hey, let's hold on. We're going to do this the right way. Because if it's not, we're going to recant the record and we're going to say what it officially was. So we did everything. And then it ended up being, 250 and some change. But when people ask me 250, I didn't want to go like 250.2 or something. And kilograms don't transfer over. So for all purposes, usually just say 250. And then sure enough, one of the Russians trolled me the next day because I knew the Russian that everybody anticipated to break the record, I knew he was competing the next day. So I was like, you know what, God willing, it'd be cool to have it for a day. And sure enough, I woke up at like 9 a.m., went out, had a couple, partied a little bit with some friends, woke up, and I get this post that I'm tagged on, new Russian, new world record, 115. I was like, you got to be kidding me. But I said, congratulations, yada, yada, yada. And then it ended up being, he was just trolling me. And then him and, a couple other Russians did this whole thing like, I recognize his strength, but it's not to the same standards. And they criticize the size of the platform. They criticize my arm position. They even, criticize the weights. They named about every single possible thing they could to try to discredit the record. And Nick Strength and Power covered it. I made my points. I see their points. Some notable people, CT Fletcher weighed in and said, well, according to my, and his federation is even a recognized, he lets people lift in gym shorts and pig iron, not even calibrated. So I was like, this guy's own federation doesn't adhere to what most federations hold as standards, but he's criticizing the federation I just broke this record in. So it became a little bit of a spectacle, but, I took it with a grain of salt. All publicities end up being good publicity, depending on what kind of spin you can put on it. So that's how I went from competitive bench to strict curl.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because Nick Strength and Power has been bringing a lot of notoriety to strict curl recently, and I was going to ask you what you think about the recent popularity of that event.
You know what? I think there's a couple things. I would say most of it, I would say he has a hand in it. I would say CT Fletcher, someone I don't know, and I'll just say this for the record, I don't know why because I wouldn't think that someone would be feeling a certain kind of way or in their feelings about someone breaking their record, because records are meant to be broken. But for whatever reason, he feels a certain kind of way about it. That's his opinion. I still respect the man. He's done a lot of great things for the sport. As far as Nick's strength and power, I think a lot of it had to do with, CT, him covering CT. Obviously anything Larry Wheels jumps into, people are going to, take an eye and take notice to. And then, and then other people, Brian Shaw, a couple other people, didn't really compete, but they dabbled in it because it's something we've all done at the gym. We all go to the gym and want to see how much we can curl, not necessarily short curl, but power curl or cheat curl, whatever you want to call it. And so I think, and then also with the lay of the land and the way things seem to be out there in the world, it makes it real easy to train for that event at home. If you have a bar, you have a wall, you have some plates. So I think it lends its way. And then also with, I look and see what the strongman are doing. And it's like, it's a thing where, you have people with notoriety setting records, and that's a whole nother story, setting records, at their gym, at home, in specialized events, which I think is all fine. Like I said, that's another conversation. But I think there's really a big calling for individualistic sports or feats of strength. So I just think everything was kind of right. I think because he has such a big platform, it got a lot of notoriety. And then I think with just the lay of the land, if I had to, maybe number wise, I think 9 out of your top 10 strict curlers in the world are from Russia. So anytime they have to hand over a record, they feel a certain kind of way. I noticed the same thing happened with Julius and all the criticism. He's a teammate of mine, a good friend. We're both on Ghost. As soon as he broke the record, which was held by, a Russian, a lot of people felt a certain kind of way. So, I mean, it is what it is. But at the end of the day, it's a sport. It's something to do, something to put positive energy into. If it gets people motivated to go to the gym and try that one thing, and then they start to discover other lifts, then so be it.
Hey, listen, man, you're motivating a lot of us.
Don't tell me that. Is that a Yovanko, like, OB like 55? That's another controversy too, but what it is.
That was a gift from my father-in-law 20 years ago.
Yeah. Something I want to say before we hand it over to Justin. I wonder if strength athletes feel a certain kind of way about certain, I don't know if they nitpick about, hey, we're going to use this type of apparatus for the farmer or for the finger, or if we lift a car, it has to be a Volkswagen. It can't be a Prius. Because here's the thing, I made this point the other day real quick, because one of the biggest controversies was the bar. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but the Russian Federation, the WRP, the one that everybody kind of covers as the strictest or the end all, they'll actually allow 2 different variations of the bar. And they do it for a very good reason. And this is something that I think I get dinged on a lot, because in the sport of strict curl, different federations use different bars. So I agree there might need to be a standardized, but I think the point that I'll make in kind of defending the bar I use, or especially my hand placement, I think if you were watching most people go to strict curl, the hand placement, and you know this from being a bigger guy, Justin, the hand placement, when you're a bigger guy, 300 something plus pounds, and you have like myself, like a 64-inch suit jacket size, my hand placement, if everybody has to use the same bar, it's going to be extremely uncomfortable for me to have to grip the same place that if a 115-pound teenager comes up and grips, just because of our body type. And I was like, in other sports that use different equipment, no one expects tennis players to all use the same racket. No one expects Major League Baseball players to all use the same standardized one bat fits all. So it's kind of like, I get it, but I don't get it. If you're allowed to kind of gravitate towards the grip or the bar you like, and at the end of the day, if you adhere to the strictness of keeping your arms or your chest and your butt and everything back, then I think the lift is the lift. Because, I see so much controversy in your sport with, oh, well, he used this equipment for that, and this person used this. And at the end of the day, stones are stones, weight is weight, but maybe there's something I'm missing there.
No, I think that's a perfect segue for Justin. I have an idea what he'll say, but Justin, what is the expectation of standardized implements in Strongman?
There is no standardization in Strongman. You know, if you're going to do a log press, there are 15 different logs out there that you can pick and choose from wooden ones, metal ones, you know, homemade ones. There's, perfect example right now. Iron Bibby just set the world record on one of the Austrian oaks. Well, Big Z set that a long time ago on a metal log. And people will sit there and, kind of go back and forth as, he hit the record on that log. That log should now be used from now on just for that record. And unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. And, I agree with LeRoy. It doesn't matter what implement you use. If you can do the weight, you can do the weight, period. Now, of course, different standards can kind of come up to play. Big Z, he was outside when he did his. Iron Bibby, he was inside in a stadium. Depending on who the judge was. I believe they both had the same judge for that particular press. But that can be for any world record, honestly.
That's the first I heard that. That's kind of surprising. Because when people compared Eddie to Thor, I mean, I get one was competition and one was in a home gym, but the outside versus inside, because Eddie's was done at the same giant stadium, and it's kind of, like that was kind of the standard. So it's funny, not funny, but it's just kind of different to hear someone actually make the case and point outside versus inside. Because I've met Iron a couple of times, and I was surprised. I was going to ask what your take on that particular record was, because I saw him draw so much criticism. And I'm not versed enough in the sport. Just the one thing that stood out to me is there's almost even a racial divide where people were kind of playing the race card saying, oh, it's 2021, black privilege is nice. And I was like, I never play that card. To me, like, I'm a minority, but the lift is a lift. The weight doesn't care what color I am.
No. And like I said, all that kind of stuff, like you said, if you can do the weight, you can do the weight. Period. At the end of the day, Iron Bibby, he's the only man right now walking this planet that could do that weight. That's my opinion. He's one of the strongest pressers right now. Probably will be for quite a while. That dude is just completely massive.
The scary thing is, imagine what Iron Bibby could press if he had Luke Stoltman's technique.
Exactly. All Bibby does, he leans back and he turns it into an incline press. There's not really a whole lot of leg drive. It's mostly upper body for him. And like I said, he's just insanely powerful that if he could get some technique in and, like I said, take a cue from him, there's a little bit of leg drive and even work on his clean a little bit, because he takes a lot of energy just to clean the log up there. Because he about missed it that when he set the record, his clean was a little off. But if he could just clean up a little bit, it's never really telling what he could do.
I think the one point where I would draw more of a difference is like with deadlifting, for instance, you can have a regular deadlift bar or you can have the elephant bar. And so there's deadlift records set on both, but the elephant bar is 2 feet longer. And so I think in that case, it does need its own record. But as far as like a regular deadlift or regular log press or whatever, like if you can push the weight, you can push the weight. As long as the equipment is within similar parameters, I guess.
Yeah, deadlift heights matter too. Like you can have a standard 9-inch deadlift or an 18-inch deadlift, which is a lot easier for some guys. Funny enough, not for all guys.
Yeah.
And I completely agree. I've never personally actually used one of those elephant bars before. I'd love to try it. I don't think it would really work well for me because, by the time you really start feeling that weight, it's already up to your knee, and that's my weakest point. I'm more powerful off the floor, and if my starting point is at my knee, I'm like, well, hell. there goes a lot of my weight.
I have a question, if I could, for you guys. This kind of came up on a different, program that I was on a couple of nights ago. When it comes to you being a competitor, Justin, and you see these records broken, and I kind of pose it like this. I asked these guys, where do you stand as far as what your thoughts are on what I would call peak versus prime? Because I've noticed lately, it's you see a lot of these guys that are up in arms about these records being broken. It seems like most of them either set the records and they peak when they were peaking. And I've noticed the guys that have had records broken when they're still in their prime are usually the most congratulatory. I was going to say, does it rub you the wrong way when you see it? Because I know with me it does. Say, for example, some of the people that drew a lot of criticism on the strict curl were gentlemen that broke it when they were in their prime, versus people that I'm competitive with that are still in their peak. I just noticed that they're kind of more congratulatory, just like I think I've been when the Russian turned around the next day and broke it. I was congratulatory because to me that gets me fired up. Like, great for you, enjoy it while it lasts, because I'm gonna train and I'm gonna go to a meet in a week or two or a month, and I'm gonna retake that record back. Versus, I think maybe it's just because their time has passed. I'm trying to understand the mentality of why some of these guys that hit records in their peak, meaning towards the end of their career, just are so bitter. Because I see this all the time with bench. I see it all the time with deadlift guys. The guys who are still in the sport breaking the records, they usually have the least amount of criticism. And I don't know if it's because they're still competing, they don't want to draw criticism themselves, or the competitive part of them just says, okay, cool, I'm going to go out and break it. What's your thoughts on that?
I tell you, to me, that sounds exactly like that 50, 60-year-old guy that's in your gym walking up to you saying, back in my day, I could do 100 pounds more than that. I'm like, I'm sure you could. Highly doubtful, but like I said, when it comes to the competitives, like the people competing still and breaking records, perfect example. When my block record was broken by Steve Smith, and he was the one who established it, and he held it for quite a while till I broke the record. Then the following year, we were back up there in January. I missed my attempt, but I still wanted to see it being broken. I was cheering him on probably louder than anybody else.
Yeah.
I wanted him to get that record, because now that's going to push me even more when I start training again. And, come January next year, we go back to Kentucky and we try it again. I like that drive. I like that motivation.
I love it too. And I wonder if you felt this, because I don't want to sound cocky, but it's nice talking to another, world record holder. But it's funny because people ask me, what is it like? Is it harder when you get to the top? And I said, no. I said, on the contrary, my mindset, it feels easier, because when I, kind of like the old Arnold Schwarzenegger, the wolf at the top of the hill, they're saying it's not as hungry, but Arnold was like, hey, when I want the food, it's there. I kind of feel like it was harder because I didn't know if I was putting in enough work when I knew the three guys ahead of me. Because in my mind, or in your mind as a competitor, you always feel like you're doing what you can because you haven't got there. So, whatever you're doing, you still have to do more and then some. And I felt that way when I knew pretty much the three people I was chasing, CT, Dennis Plankloff, and Naiz, the other top Russian in the world. So I felt when you have that kind of fuel and drive, it's easy to be motivated, because no matter what happens until you get to that level, you just got to tell yourself, keep grinding, keep working, because the numbers tell you you're not there. But now that I'm there, I think it's actually easier every time I step into the gym and train strict curl, which is probably, every other day or 6 days a week. But with that being said, it came up in an interview. Someone asked me, well, why is it easier? And I said it's simple because before I looked at three people's competition that I was trying to get to their level and above. Now I look around and every single person competing is competition. So it was me versus three. Now it's me versus about 100 or a couple hundred or 1,000, whatever the case may be. So it's way easier to train, as hard as you can when you step in the gym, because it's almost like someone's going to pick a fight for you, and it's you versus 100, and you don't know who's going to come up to you first. You just got to be ready to take one or two or three on all at the same time, because when you're gunning for that person at the top, it's easy because they've already put their body in work, and so you're like, okay, I got to hit 250, but there might be two or three people that might jump in a meet at one time, and they might go, for me it might be 251, 254, 256. You never know. So how do you feel now that you're at the top versus when you're climbing the top to get there?
Well, I'll tell you, I am climbing back to get to that top now once Steve broke my record. But for that 1 year that I did have it, it's one of those things that's hard to describe, that to hold a world record, really in anything. There ain't too many people that can say that. Mm-hmm. And I tell you, whenever I was asked to go to this competition and even attempt it, I believe it was 3.5 weeks out, and I've never even attempted a block press before. We had one at the gym that I train at, but that was because of nationals the year before, and we had to do the block carry. It was in one of our medleys. So I've never actually pressed the block before. So I had a good 2.5 solid weeks of trying to get that thing down as close as I possibly could. And it was a true challenge. Something I've never done before, completely different than any kind of barbell press, log press, anything, because you're not even really holding on to anything. It's just setting in your hands. It can go forward, it can go backwards. And believe me, I tell you, when it goes backwards, I got the knots in my head to still prove it. There ain't no stopping that thing. But when I went there, and I actually failed my first attempt at the record, and it was 355.8 pounds, I believe. I failed my first attempt. So I had to go back and regroup, refocus, kind of get out of my head a little bit. And I went back and just completely smashed it, really. It was a difficult lift, but when I got the down signal and it was a legit lift, there's no question about it. That feeling of being number one, I'm like, this is a pretty damn awesome feeling. But then I kind of quickly came back to, I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure Steve could probably do this right now if he wanted to. Unfortunately, he wasn't there that year. So, that was kind of short-lived, and I wanted to keep it. So I went straight to work because now I knew I got this man. He's going to be chasing this record. I got to do what I can to keep it, because I earned it. I worked for it. And, I wanted to keep it, and I'm not going to let anybody take it away from me. So for me, it was that extra drive, to keep on top of it. Now, unfortunately, last year in October, I had a hernia surgery. So, should I have gone January the following year or this year to try it again? Probably not. I was healed, but, for, what was it? 8 weeks, basically 9 weeks of hardly any training at all, just so that this heals up properly. I wasn't ready, but it was that competitive side in me. I knew Steve was going to be there. Another guy, Marcus Crowder, he won America's Strongest Man last year. I've competed with him. He's a strong presser. He's a strong dude all around. But he threw his hat in the ring, and he's going to try it. And I was like, well, these are two pretty tough guys, and they're pretty strong. I want to go up there and give it a shot, and just try my best and see what happens. And unfortunately, it wasn't enough. I was able to get the last warm-up with 320, and we started with 360 on the block. I gave it 2 good attempts, and I was honestly probably a few inches away from being fully locked out on my second attempt and getting the down signal. But, David Waters, he's a good judge. He's a fair judge, and he's also very strict, especially when it comes to being, a world record attempt. He's just not going to give it away to anybody. You got to make sure you get that legit lift. And Steve, when he came in, he did it, no problem. Threw 10 more pounds in there, did that, no problem. So now I got to beat 370 next year in January. And so, like I said, that feeling, it was very high, but, short-lived, because I knew the people out there that were chasing after that. And I had to kick in that extra work. And, now after, competing in America's Strongest Man, I got the time now to really focus on that. And I still have the goal set for doing at least 400 pounds by the end of this year. In training now, that'd be a training lift. It don't really count until come January. But I do think it's doable, 100%.
Yeah, well, it's really exciting to hear that you're going to be returning to Mammoth Strength Challenge 6 this year, and I'm definitely going to watch it. And that being said, that's going to be live streamed by our sponsors for this video, Garage Gym Life Media. So for anybody who hasn't, put that on your calendar for this coming January, definitely do it. And let's let our sponsors talk a little bit about what they're doing over there at Garage Gym Life Media. Time I'd like to let you know that this video is being sponsored by our good friends at Garage Gym Life Media. If you like some of the analysis I've done on domestic contests in the past and want to know some more about the fine folks who are putting together and streaming some of those contests, I'm going to let John Greaves III, the founder of Garage Gym Life Media, tell you a little more about it.
I wanted to be a part of Static Monster since I first heard about it. In 2020, you had 985 competitors from 19 countries. The idea of people from all around the world competing in the axle deadlift and the log clean and press all at the same time on the same day is something that's just mind-blowing. Normally, you'd have to fly overseas, and then you only compete against the people who are also able to fly to that same location. It's a blessing for us to be able to not only live stream this event, but also be a part of bringing it to somewhere close to us here in the Southeast. So this is not only an amazing opportunity for the average competitor to be able to see where they stack up against the top athletes in the sport of strongman, but it's also a rare situation where you are literally competing head to head. And I'm just really blessed for our live stream company to be a part in some small way of getting the story of these amazing athletes out there who are doing a historic thing.
And thanks again to our sponsors, Garage Gym Life Media, for making this stream possible. LeRoy cut out for a bit, but I've just brought him back in. Welcome back, LeRoy.
Yeah, I was typing on the IG for whatever. I'm in Austin, Texas, and we're having like this severe thunder storm, something going on. So it keeps the internet kept cutting in and out.
Yeah, no worries, man. I was just playing our sponsors promotion, so that's all you missed so far. Justin,
Okay.
can you go in a little bit more about why the Mauser block is so hard?
Well, for the people that don't really know what the Mauser block is, it is just this big old metal block with no handles, sharp corners, and it's unforgiving. When loading this thing, you can have spacers inside of it. If not, it can be, top heavy, it can be bottom heavy. So whenever you're getting it, when you're cleaning it up, you can tend to want to throw it behind you a little bit more. And if for somebody like me, when I was first learning it, once you get it up on your chest, if you have terrible mobility like I do, getting your hands underneath it and off of your chest just to get into that rack position, for me, I found that was the hardest thing to do. It took a lot of trial and error. It took a lot of working on my flexibility just to be able to lean back far enough to where I can actually get my hands underneath it. And really one of the big things too is keep my breath. Because if I just let all that out at once, I'll lose that stability in that rack position. And, for me, I found my hand positioning to be just a little bit further back. So as I lean back and press, it's kind of more like your incline press and all, like a close grip incline press. So and once you start pressing it, the balance becomes the biggest issue. You could have a 5-pound plate kind of stuck in there like we did, just because we didn't have enough room to add any more plates. We were just kind of sticking them in there along the side. Believe it or not, you can feel that a little bit as you're pressing. The higher, like the more and more you go up, your wrists are wanting to start to rock back and forth. And like I said, it's by far one of the most difficult overhead pressings that I do. And I like to think I'm pretty decent at overhead pressing all around. I'm 400 pounds plus and everything when it comes to log, axle, working on the block. Now that will be 400 pounds by the end of this year. I'm saying it now. Even an Atlas stone. One of the things I practice is pressing an Atlas stone. That's also difficult as well, but maybe they'll turn that into a lift that they'll have a world record attempt for one day.
Yeah, and let's give you the proper credit. You set your world record on a dirt floor, if I recall.
Yeah, I did have a rubber mat to stand on, but yes, we were in a dirt floor arena that was kind of hard packed, and also standing back at an incline just a little bit. So not, was it the most ideal, place to have it? Probably not. But then again, that's the sport. I've competed from parking lots in a Home Depot to, big old arenas on concrete floors. So it's really anywhere and everywhere when you can have these competitions.
LeRoy, I was wondering, have you ever lifted anything non-standard like that, like non-barbell related?
I think I've done like seated log press, like 350, like 400 pounds, but I always give these guys credit. I've always wanted to dabble in strength because back in my competitive days, I'd always get a lot of either comparisons or people, would tell me how great Eddie was or is, or, whatever you want to call it. All due respect to Eddie. I was like, well, I don't know. I'd love to see it because I've seen obviously what Eddie's done in the sport, as far, and I'm bringing up Eddie because I think just in general conversation, most people would say he's probably one of the strongest pressers, across the board in strongman. I was like, well, if we compare it, I've incline pressed 675. I don't think Eddie's ever went over, the 620 mark. So I've always wanted to see what a 650, 670 incline would convert over if I was to actually take on the right kind of form in strongman. That's probably one of the I think that's, if I had to pick a gym lift that I was very fond of, it'd probably be that. I think it's the only press that Julius hasn't smashed me on yet. But I'm sure if you want to go out there and incline press 675, you probably could. But you know what? For right now, if it was official gym record, I'd hold it. So not a lot of people can say they've inclined, 650. So I'd like to see when I'm done with strict curl or crossing over to strongman what lifts I'd actually be good at.
Yeah,
but I tip my hat because it's not necessarily the strength; it's the awkwardness of the objects, in question.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting to see. And by the way, what's your prediction? How soon is Julius going to hit that 800-pound bench?
You know what? I really think when when he has, like he said it best, when he has a ability just to really focus on training. I'm sure Justin can attest this. I can attest this. It's everybody. It's the old cliche. Everybody wants to be pro until you get pro, and then you don't realize how many obligations you have with meet and greets, with sponsors, with having to do this meet or this gym appearance. So, with Julius, he travels so much, for different sponsors and different things. I think the result, there's a couple things, he wasn't able to put together a couple hardcore weeks of training like he had wanted to. I honestly think the first attempt at 800, when I gave him the lift off, I think if it wasn't for the misload, I think he would have smashed 800 that day. And a lot of people, and we were talking about this, me and my friends the other day, and it's something I think it goes to say with all lifters, and one of the reasons I applaud Julius, because someone was saying like, oh, if it's not done in official competition, it's not the same. And, people made that argument with Thor. And I would say you really have to look at the last 10, 15 years. And I don't think it's fair to the athletes to really make that kind of comparison or knock athletes just because of the way strength sports are going. Because you could say, technically, so-and-so did it in a meet, you know what I mean? And here's one that we hear about, when Eddie's pull. Eddie, and I've heard this from fellow strongman, back me up if I'm misspeaking here, but Eddie had the power to manipulate the order of events when he did that 500 at Giants. Just like if you're the top of your sport or the king, you're going to, if that's your best event, it's probably going to go sooner than later. That way you're well rested. But at the same time, he did it after a couple other events versus Thor, did it, at his gym. And I'm not knocking that, but I also made the argument, well, Thor didn't have, 5,000 people in the stands cheering for him either, because that makes it a huge difference. But I'd say this, getting back to Julius, or people who knock and say it has to be done in competition. If you look at almost any of the major feats of strength, we could say Eddie's pull was in Giants, which is pretty much his backyard. Thor was at home. Scott Mendelson lifted pretty much at home when he first did the 716. Krill did it in a meet he threw on in Russia. So the point I'm making here is most of these lifts, some of them technically were in a meet, but it was usually a flight of their own. There was nobody else in the flight. It was all pre-done and staged to when they were going to be able to go, which I'm saying it should be. So it's like you can say, well, this was competition, but was it really? Because, Julius's 800 at Wrigley's Field. Eric Spoto's was done at a gym that it was a meet, but he was pretty much the only lifter in that meet. Now, I'm not taking away from these people's lifts, but the average person in the general public really needs to get away from this notion that people think it's just all around competitive powerlifting meet, and these guys just showed up and had the best meet of their life. No, 9 times out of 10, these were predetermined, staged events that catered to the lifter. But at the same time, when we're talking about the top 1% of people doing what they're out there to do, like in the Mauser or another lift, I think, the meet director and these meets should cater to this person if they're going to bring notoriety to the event and to that, to that arena, why not cater to them? But the one thing I'll say about Julius is historically, he has not had that luxury because he set every national and world record outside of Kentucky. Julius Maddox, a lot of people don't understand, has never had the luxury of lifting in a meet in his home state to set a national or world record. He's done every single one on a different platform, different bar, different weights, different spotter. You name it, he's faced it, he's done it. Versus some of these other people have had the luxury of, we'll call it home gym advantage. They know the plates, they know the bar, they know the setup, they know the platform. And I'm not discrediting from them, but I think it really plays a factor, with someone who draws so much criticism for his records, or when people ask, and I'm not saying this was a bad question, but you're like, when's he going to break it? Well, there's a lot of factors that go into a lift like 800 pounds raw. It's just on another level. I couldn't even fathom how that kind of weight feels.
Yeah, I asked because I'm excited for him. I'm a fan.
Oh, yeah. No, I definitely think it's going to happen, but I think he really just needs to be able to hone in and put training after training after training, not, a gym tour here, a promotional thing there. He'll tell you he really didn't get to train, and put together a good string of training the way he wanted to. And let's go. I mean, we could spend 30 seconds and talk about the event itself. He had, I think, a radio interview to do. He had to throw out the first pitch. He had to watch the game in Wrigley Field in humidity all day and then lift at 8 o'clock at night, which I'm sure you know this, Justin. If I have a choice, I want to lift early on. I want to get weigh-ins out of the way, get some food in me, and then go right to the event. I don't want to have to be on my feet all day of a meet day and lift at nighttime. I mean, he didn't even take his attempts until almost 8 o'clock at night. So he had so much other stuff to do that some could say was a distraction. But from a physical standpoint, he probably spent so much energy just going to the game, the first pitch, the adrenaline alone, then turn around and have to try to hit a number like 800. I wouldn't wish that. For someone to say that event was catered to him, there was a lot of obstacles in the way that he had to overcome just to get platform ready.
That's a lot of really nice perspective you added, though, about knowing the plates versus home gym advantage versus home stadium. A lot of great perspective there. Maybe I'll be a little easier on Thor going forward than I have been.
I mean, there's also the flip side of that too. I know if I, tongue in cheek, I'm sure they have a good relationship, but if I was Thor and I called out Eddie, and then I had what some say are the advantages, it's almost at a disadvantage because now you have all that added pressure because you don't have to worry about performing in front of a crowd. You don't have to worry about performing after several other events that may or may not have taken their toll, and you have that, what people would say, home gym advantage. So there's more pressure that you better go out and hit that lift. But I mean, at the end of the day, no matter when you're at that caliber, and I'm sure you know this, when you lift that type of weight and you're at that level, when you're the top 0.00001%, the time, the place, all that stuff, it might make a 20 or 30 pound difference, but it's not going to be the ultimate determining factor to whether you hit the lift or not.
Yeah. So, I don't know. What do you say, guys? Do we transition into Justin's most recent performance at America's Strongest Man? Talk that through a little bit.
Well, I think first we should start a little bit more about who is Justin, because he's a firefighter, and maybe talk a little bit about how did you even get into Strongman, and then how did you end up at America's Strongest Man as well?
Okay, yeah. No problem. So, yes, I've been a firefighter for a little over 15 years now. I started volunteering for the first 2 years, and I got hired on with Coweta County Fire Department here in Noonan, Georgia, and been with them 13 years now. Great job. I absolutely love it. And especially this year plus last year with our world situation, work has just been crazy. crazy busy. It's been nonstop. But yeah, like I said, I've been doing that for like 15 years. I got started in Strongman. How was that year? 2015. So I'm still, fairly, new. I'm not some 10 plus year seasoned veteran by no means. It was a local gym. It was a CrossFit gym that they were having these hybrid strongman games and out in this little grassy field near the Belk store, and I went to go watch it one year, the year before. I said, you know what? That's pretty cool. I grew up just like LeRoy playing football, lifting weights, doing like the unsanctioned meets. So I've always been in the gym at a very young age. I grew up watching World's Strongest Man on TV. I thought, you know what? That's pretty cool that I could get to do some of that. So I came in next year having no clue what I was doing. I just figured, maybe I'll be strong enough to do some of it. And I ended up getting second place. And I thought, you know what? I think I could actually learn this a little bit. And I'll come back next year. So hit the gym a little bit harder. Tried out a couple of different ways of training. Got on YouTube a lot. Finding ways to train for specific events like the Atlas Stones. I've never picked up an Atlas Stone before in my entire life for that competition. Had no idea how to train for it. Like I said, the following year, 2016, I came in and I won. And ever since then, I was hooked. That's when I really started to do some more research on the sport. And actually, I had no idea of the amateur competitions across this country that they were having. I thought it was like World's Strongest Man level, at that level, and there wasn't anything else. Because I've never seen it. It's never really been spoken about. I didn't, drive by a parking lot somewhere and, see them having a competition. So once I found out that this is something I can actually do in a sanctioned competition, and my first meet or the first competition I ever did was Mid-Georgia's Strongest Man, and it was under the United States Strongman Federation. And this was, some serious weight with some guys who've been doing this for a little while. And let me tell you, I got humbled very quickly. I came in there, I was confident. I said, you know what? I got some good gym lifts. I got this. I can do this. I will say the only thing that I did well on was the overhead press medley. I got second on that. That's just something I've always been able to do. Everything else, I got whooped badly. I think if I wasn't last, I was second to last. So that lit another fire underneath me. I'm like, all right, this was horrible, but I'm not going to let this happen again. And, real quick to talk on one of the great things about strongman and strong women is the community, because a lot of these guys were local. I talked to pretty much everybody there that was in my weight class and the other weight classes as well. I started exchanging contact information, finding out where they went to go train, asking, hey, can I come along? Can you possibly teach me? I don't have any of this equipment. And before I knew it, I've met up with a group of guys that are local or, pretty local to me. They were out in Carrollton, and one up in Canton, Georgia, called Growler's Gym. And now another one of the places I train at is at Madhouse in Mableton, Georgia. But like I said, both great gyms, got a lot of equipment. Highly recommend them both. But like I said, he was reaching out, and these guys just pretty much accepted me in their group and teaching me, for the next 5 years. And everything that I really accomplished has started out with them, because they could have dismissed me. Said, no, we don't want to bring somebody else in our group. Would I be where I'm at now? Probably not. Because it was one of those sports where if you didn't know somebody or have any kind of access to any of the implements at all, you can't succeed in the sport. I mean, I don't care how strong you are in the gym. If you don't train with the implements itself, you won't get anywhere, because that was one of the lessons I learned at Strongman. I thought it was brute strength, 100%. No, a lot of technique. And what you think looks like just brute strength is a lot of technique involved. And, that brute strength comes with it. But, I know a lot of guys who they can press more out of the rack, like with a log or an axle, just because they don't have that technique to clean it up to their chest from the floor. It's one of those things you have to work on. Brute strength doesn't always get you where you need to be. And, once I learned that, and I started to really evolve into the sport, progressively year after year after year, doing as many competitions as I could, most of them local, because, we can all agree flying out across the country is pretty expensive. So, we were driving anywhere to Florida, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, Mississippi, all these places, more local to Georgia. Then I got to the point where, all right, I feel like I can do bigger competitions. I can start going up with some of these elite amateurs. And, well, those competitions, unfortunately, aren't really close to me. So, flying out to Arizona, California, Texas, Illinois, Indiana, all these places now, to go do a big competition, you got to travel to. And, I haven't gotten to the point now or yet of international competition, but, that's definitely in the works. I'm talking to a few guys with starting Strongman Championship League, and hopefully, keep my fingers crossed, next year, I'll be given an opportunity to go compete in one of their shows and, prove to them that I deserve to be there. Because I think that would be amazing, to get in with that league and be given that opportunity to go compete, especially in all these, foreign countries, all over Europe and everywhere. I think that'd be completely amazing. Yeah.
Have you traveled much outside the U.S. or, not to compete, just on your own, or have you been mostly in the U.S.?
What year is that? We went to Cancun in 2005. That's about it.
It's a good place.
It was a whole different kind of competing when we went there.
A lot of 40s. So how did you so maybe talk to us a little bit about the process of getting ready for America's Strongest Man and everything leading up to that, and then about the show at all, if there's anything big. Fingers are, I always love watching those, but yeah, anything that you want to talk about the show as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. So with America's Strongest Man, that was one of those, it was actually a very big surprise for the elite amateurs. So originally what the plan was, they were going to take the 4th, 5th, and 6th place finishers at nationals the year before and go ahead and give them an invite. And they were going to take 3 more amateurs doing online qualifier videos. That was, I think cleaning and pressing away with a 350-pound log, 800-pound deadlift for reps, and a 365-pound farmers each hand for 50 or 60 feet. Can't remember off the top of my head. So it was extremely difficult. And like I said, whoever sent their videos in, they were going to take the top 3 of them. So it was just me and actually one other person that have actually qualified. So that only ended up being 3 of us total, because Josh Silva was one of the guys who got his invite. And, you know, on a quick note, that dude right there, I'm sure y'all watched him and his performance. He won, and he dominated that whole day. It was impressive to watch him compete. It really was. And when he deadlifted 925 pounds, that's still not his max.
Yeah, he came out. He was one that I hadn't really heard of before. Like I'd heard of him, but I didn't really know anything about him. And so even just looking through the list, he wasn't really one of the ones that I was expecting to do well overall. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't watch it live or anything, but looking up the results afterwards, I was like, oh my, wow.
Yeah, it was impressive.
I knew about his deadlift ahead of time, but I didn't know about all the other stuff. And while we're at it, talking about the amateurs, like Thomas Evans was awesome also.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Thomas, like I said, both of them placed higher than me. Thomas ended up 5th, and I ended up 6th overall. Thomas had a great day. He is one of those very well-rounded athletes in strongman. I definitely see him with a big future in this, just as well as Josh. Like I said, there's a couple of rough edges with Josh that if he can get, rounded out a little bit better, because, he's a massive dude. He's 6'5", 6'6", and I could have sworn he told me he weighed in about like 480. Yeah. And to watch him move the way that he does, to get in his deadlift position, to doing the fingers, doing the sandbag medley, his conditioning for being such a big guy was impressive. So, like I said, watching him, because we competed against each other at nationals the year before, and to me personally, I think it was a 9-day difference. Yeah, he finished 4th at nationals, but like I said, America's Strongest Man, he dominated. There wasn't anybody catching him. But like I said, with me competing, it was not necessarily a short-term notice, but whenever we had to send in our videos, this was in August. So, typically a lot of guys, they like that 2 or 3 months of solid training for a competition. And, we had a little over a month, basically, which, no excuses. It's one of those, if you want to compete at that level, you have to be ready. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's Josh standing next to Marcus Crowder. And Marcus Crowder.
I'm just amazed how somebody could make Marcus Crowder look that small.
Yeah. Look, I'm 6'1". I weighed in at 390, and I stood next to him, and it's very rare for me to feel small standing next to somebody. He's just a massive dude. But but like I said, having not an ideal length of time to really prepare for this competition because it was heavy. One of the heavier ones that we've done going against, some of the best in the country. Like I said, you got Marcus Crowder, who won it the year before. My buddy Wesley Claiborne, who I train with. I've been training with ever since I got into the sport. He won it back in 2019. Yeah. To where, you get Stan Carradine. Yeah, Wesley. We're going to start calling him Wesley the Viper Claiborne because he vipered every single one of those presses. That's 355 pounds. I don't think a lot of people truly understand how difficult and impressive that is to viper that weight. And he does it more, I think he can viper more than he can actually push press.
The crazy thing is Marcus was doing a lot of vipers too.
What was that?
I said the crazy thing is Marcus was doing a lot of vipers too. I think he did five vipers on his run.
Yeah. Both of them are very explosive lifters. Especially, like I said, Wesley with his deadlift. He is so strong off the floor because he pulled 900 or 905 at that competition. And he's definitely had more in the tank. And he does it wearing a pair of Merle hiking shoes, which, once again, blows my mind. He does everything in those Merle hiking shoes. For the longest time, he didn't wear any kind of gear. If you saw him put on his belt, something was about to happen. To where, you got other people out there like me, elbow sleeves, knee sleeves. I got my my warm belt on over with my regular belt, and I got to keep everything protected and nice and tight. But watching them do their thing and knowing that I got to compete with these guys, it is that little bit of extra pressure. I knew I belonged there. I earned my spot just like Thomas did, and I deserved to be there. I can compete with these guys. I didn't have the best day I wanted, but looking back at it, there were a couple things I could possibly have done different, but for the limited time of getting ready for this competition, because like I said, with work at the fire department, we're having to work so many mandatory days now that, we'll work 48 hours in a row, be off for one shift, and you got to go back for another 48 hours. It makes it a little bit difficult for training for a couple of weeks at a time. And like I said, I'm not one to, make excuses by no means, but, it just, if I would have had like the 2 to 3 months like I typically do, I believe it would have been a little bit more different outcome. Is that?
So I have a question for you, Justin. I'm going to share a picture here, and I want you to tell me, they called this a Husafell carry. Why is this a Husafell and not a shield carry?
That's what it was written down as in the events list. But let me tell you, that is a massive shield that weighed 400 pounds. Now, I want to get the name wrong. Texas Concepts, a guy named Frank, built these. He built the Fingal Fingers. That may have been it. But
is that Frank Gonzalez who makes the Mauser blocks
yes.
now?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So he built all this specifically for this competition. Excellent equipment. Nothing negative to say about it except for they're just heavy. But by far one of the most difficult ones that I've ever had to do. Typically, your Husafell looks like, like a casket in a way. It has more of an edge and corners to it, to where this one is, like I said, you can see completely rounded at the bottom. And if you don't hug that thing nice and tight to you, that thing was slipping. You know,
do you use like tacky or chalk or anything with it, or did they just have you go as is, basically?
you can only use chalk. You know, no spray tacky or anything like that, because that's cheating. You know, if it makes the lift easier, that's cheating. But I want to say, I can't remember who this was that Wes was going against, but you could wear something on your forearms.
This is
Kind of
Marcus.
help, like some tape or, you know, some stone sleeves, as long as they weren't covered in tacky, just to kind of help give you that little bit of extra grip and also protect your forearms as well.
Yeah,
You know, that's a lot of weight. Was that?
I was going to say, this is Marcus.
Okay, Marcus, yeah. So, you know, when you do these kind of lifts, as great as these implements are, they do have sharp corners on them. You know, that thing slides, it could cut something. So you do have to, you know, protect yourself, protect your hands, your forearms. You know, a lot of this weight is being rested, you know, on your belly, your diaphragm. So breathing is not really an option while you're doing this particular event. I don't know if you saw my video or not. I think I made it about a little over 14 feet before I completely, you know, just kind of everything went black on me. And I lost the feeling in my legs. I couldn't even, you know, keep my balance. It's just one of those, if you don't have it in the right place and you let out too much air, you're not going much further.
So, LeRoy, you were talking earlier about maybe giving log a try sometime. Any excitement over trying something like this in the future?
It all, you know what? It looks super exciting to me. I mean, it's a challenge, and at this point, sure, why not? You know, because I've always had, you know, everybody I think has critics and naysayers, but you know, when I jumped in to bench, you know, it only took me a couple years, and you know, got top 10 rank in the world all time. Strict curl took less than a year. I mean, I've done, you know, different lifts. I mean, none of them have, like I said, been strongman, but it's like, when I'm just saying from, I don't want to say the haters because that's kind of too cliche, but I'll go out there and I can go to the gym and probably without wraps, you know, I could bent over row 500 pounds for 5 reps, and I'll still get people to question if I could deadlift 600 pounds, because I don't ever post videos of deadlifting 600 pounds. I mean, it's just one of those things. So to me, I always feel like it's going to be stacked against me just starting off as a specialist. Because I will say this, I think anytime you're a specialist, you're going to draw more criticism, and more people will be quick to tell you to kind of like stay in your lane. And so now that, you know, I tackled bench press, got ranked, strict curl, got ranked, people are now, it's like, oh, well, you're just an upper body guy. So I put it out there that, you know, give it a little while. Let me set the bar a little bit higher with the strict curl. I'll jump over to deadlifts, because believe it or not, I was a $190, and I know I'm going to sound like real Al Bundy on this one, but I was a $190 in high school, and I was pulling legit without straps 675. You know, I barely missed 700 at 190. I was a way if I would probably criticize my bench so much if I could go back, if there actually was footage of how I bench pressed in high school. I mean, like I said, I was 190 in high school. My top bench was, I think, I only got to like 365 at 190, which I don't think it's bad, but it's not. It wasn't, and that's the thing, because I'll get so many. I'll post like throwback stuff, and I'll have people like, "Well, I was in high school. You know, I benched 405, or I benched 450, or I was, you know, 2-time powerlifting state champ." And I always tell people, I don't necessarily think, and I'll say this to the younger lifters out there, I don't really think what you hit in high school is going to, by all means, be the end all tale of what your upside's going to be. Because there's some people that will hit a growth spurt. There's some people that just didn't know how to train. There's some people that just maybe it's just a matter of having the right coach or the right people around them. But I will say this for most strength athletes in general, and to the younger people out there that might be watching, never feel it's too late. Because I can almost, if I had to go down the list, including myself, I would say most powerlifters that get to the elite level, and I would even say this with strongman, probably were strong at a young age. And then somewhere during the college years, whether it's myself, got married and fat and happy, it took a couple years off, then you kind of pick it back up in your late 20s or 90s. What I would say is I see a lot of lifters that hit their peak in their late 20s and 30s. They somehow took a break, or they didn't keep the foot on the pedal their teens and their early 20s. And I think that has a lot to do with training style, with supplements, that other stuff. You know what I mean? I think some people might rely on stuff too much and go, all gas, no brakes. And they end up taking a lot of injuries because they don't have the muscle maturity from lifting, doing your base and building your foundation in your early teens or 20s, and then letting that carry through. I think sometimes people rely on other stuff, and it comes too quick, too fast, and they don't have the tendon and joint strength to kind of support some of that stuff. So my advice is never think it's too late, and just really, no matter when you start, just build a solid foundation and just understand that you got to fall in love. You got to fall in love with the grind. You got to fall in love with the grind, be willing to put in the work, and not just put so much emphasis on the results, because the results are always going to change. You're never going to start out there and say, you know what, I just want to hit a 400 log press, then I'm going to give it up. It's always going to be on to bigger, badder, what the next thing is. So I think, but you have to stay focused and determined and fall in love with the grind, so you get used to the work. And then it's just a matter of defining and understanding success is going to be for you, and then just duplicating that pattern. Once you learn how to have success, lay down the foundation, put in the work, and just put everything on autopilot and just let it keep accumulating. And then you have to be humble enough to pay it forward. Teach people. I teach someone I learned twice. That's kind of my philosophy, and I that's why I don't mind sharing so much. I don't mind posting a lot of content to show people, hey, this is exactly how I train. If you can use my method or my methodology and beat me, then that's awesome, because I'm still going to have my footprint as a legacy that's going to live on. Now, if someone else use a completely different methodology and beat me, then I'd feel a certain kind of way. But if I train someone or had a training partner that goes on to beat my records, then I'm happy, because it means that not only was the way I did stuff successful, other people, want to use the same type of philosophy and apply it to their training. So it keeps on being continuously looked at and viewed and implemented.
So would you recommend, with kids, because I run into a lot of the high school kids and everything else that are interested in powerlifting and all that sort of stuff, would you recommend that they start doing powerlifting as kids, or would you recommend that maybe do wrestling or football or something like that instead, and then when you're a little bit older, start and dabble with the barbell weights and all that sort of stuff on the side, and then once you're done growing and all that, then start getting into the powerlifting?
I would say, if I had to look back and say what, I don't think there's anything I could necessarily point my finger on or put my finger on and say, A, B, and C is why I'm successful. I think, I mean, if I have to be perfectly honest, I would say a lot of it, I would say 50% of the drive and motivation came from, and this is who I am. I can't be anybody else. It comes from growing up. I don't want to say necessarily poor, but growing up poor, having an abusive alcohol stepfather and getting abused at an early age. So you start to develop this mindset that if you don't let that stuff break you, you have to find an outlet and you have to find something to channel it towards. And that comes to the next thing, I think. So first, I'd say somehow, some way, you have to face some type of adversity that's going to make you want to overcome something, whether it was you were picked on, whether it's you had a speech impediment, whether it's you had a learning disability, whether you just were the smelly kid in the class that nobody wanted to play with. I would say get out there and find some type of adversity to overcome. Second, I think people are going to gravitate towards having a really good mentor. For me, I didn't have a father figure growing up, but I had a grandfather who was a military guy, and I had an uncle that I respected the hell out of. And they installed the work ethic, and people are going to gravitate and emulate what you want to be. So if you have a good role model or a good mentor and you want to be that, and you value the lessons and the things that they do and they practice, and you learn it through, just a certain kind of conditioning, that's what you're going to gravitate towards. So I would say it could be, going out there and wrestling. It could be going out there and playing football. It could be lifting weights. But I think in all of us, it came from, at one point, we either had someone we trusted, befriended us, a family member. Maybe you watch Pumping Iron. Maybe you watch World's Strongest Man. You watch something, or there's someone you said, I respect that person, and I want to be like that person. And then it's just a matter of kind of doing some research, reverse engineering, and figure out what do they do to get where they're at. Because I think you have to have that, because if you just worry about the results and all, the exterior stuff, you're not going to have the wherewithal to stick with it. If you're like, oh, I want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you don't have the discipline to diet or the discipline to work out, and you don't see the results start to come, it's going to be short-lived. But I think if you can emulate or have that one or two people that you look up to, and you start to take on the different things and learn what made them successful, and you can apply it to your life, you're gonna have a goal in mind. You're gonna have something that you can physically see and want to obtain, and then you're gonna have kind of a mindset that you respect and you can adopt. And then you'll start to formulate or gravitate towards what it is you feel you're going to be good at.
Great advice for sure. You mentioned earlier being around the right people. I was just wondering, are these the people that you're talking about?
Oh, yeah. Hey, Lauren is actually one of the strongest. She was a person that came to me. She like, why not learn how to strip curl? So I think we are wrapping up a session, and I wanted to go for a max effort. I think she's like 125 pounds. And so we just wanted to, just shoot something and have a little bit of fun with it. But what I would say, if I had to technically break that down, I would say, yes, it's about, you're going to find this. I think Justin can speak on this too. When you get to a top, here, so many people say, oh, it's hard to be at the top because it's such a lonely place. And I would kind of call BS, because if you're at the top, just from a universal standpoint, I think we all have it within us. So you have to pay it forward. You have to help others. Yeah, it's going to be lonely if you want to be kind of douchey about it and not pay it forward and not help other people grow. If you want to think that you invented the only way to do something and no one else is going to be able to duplicate it and do it better, then you're going to have a very short-lived career, and it's going to be very lonely. But if everybody kind of understands the way you train, or your philosophy, your ideology, or my methodology to strip curl, no, I took bits and pieces of other people that were successful. I mixed it in with what works good for me. I, add in an adult dash of I like this, a dash of I need to get better at that, a sprinkle of good luck, and, wash it down with a tall glass of shut the F up and just go out there and do the lift. But it all comes back to, throughout my career, I found I gravitated and wanted to surround myself with people that were going to push me and hold me accountable. I don't think pound for pound I've ever worked out with in my later career with people that were stronger. But I was able to find people who had a hell of a work ethic and didn't know how to quit and wouldn't take no for an answer. And if I said I'm going to do something, then to me, that's the strongest thing you can do at the gym is you got to be accountable to your word. If you say, and that's part of what I learned from, Mike O'Hearn when I trained at Gold's Gym is being accountable. Being a professional means when you say you're going to show up at 4:00, you show up at 4:00. When you tell someone you're going to be there to spot them, you're there to spot them. When they push you, you push them back harder. And don't surround, and I see so many people do this, they'll surround themselves with people who don't lift as good, who maybe aren't as talented because they want to be around a bunch of yes people. I don't want someone to pat me on the back and, kiss my butt and tell me how great I am. I want someone that's going to make me accountable and say, hey, LeRoy, I know you're tired. I know you worked out hard last night, but hey, you're supposed to be here at 4 a.m., and those are the phone calls I don't want. Because if I said I'm going to do it, I should keep my word and do it. And I think I don't want to say that's what our culture is losing or the gym culture. I think that's definitely the number one ingredient that's going to make Joe average from Joe champion. That's going to separate the people who deserve to be at the top from all the people who just sit back and just want to raise their hand and say, hey, give me a jersey. No, you're not ready to get in the game. Take the jersey off, put your hand down. It's real easy to find the people who want to be a champion because they put in the work and they're not touting on their chest saying, look at all this work I'm putting in. They just go in, they have a hardcore work ethic, and they just do it. They just commit to the grind. And if I say the one trait that I've seen all champions have, it's accountability. They are accountable for their actions. They stick to what they're going to do. They come up with a plan, and they stick to it, and they trust the process.
Yeah, great perspective. The other thing I was going to mention is not to glance over the importance of what you were saying before about overcoming adversity and perseverance. It sounds like you had, quite a history. And if you haven't met him yet, you probably would have some really great discussions with Travis Ortmeyer. He has a similar story with really going through a lot and learning how to overcome adversity. So just a little tip if you haven't met him yet, I think you'll like him.
We all do. We all have a story. Everybody's had, whether it was you had to walk to school in the snow uphill both ways. Everybody has something they've had to overcome. But it's just learning how to take those lessons and not let it break you and just apply it to just coming up with your own ideology. Here's something that really I would say if I had a gripe is you go to the gym nowadays. And you go, and like I said, I commend the strong men, the strong women, because they have a very tight-knit community. And that's one of the groups that I gravitate towards and I respect the heck out of at the gym, just because the work ethic, the camaraderie, the willing to put their self-esteem or their ego aside to help out someone become the best version of themselves. And something that's funny when you talk to your average strongman or powerlifter or gym goer versus someone else, I get this and it gets on my nerves. I'll go to the gym and someone's like, hey, how you doing? What's your name? And I'll say, my name's LeRoy Walker. And I'll say, what's your name? And they just kind of look around and they get timid. I'm like, you better speak and put some respect on your name because that's all you have in this world. Aside from your word and your self-worth is you have to be able to admire who you are. And I think there's so much talk about, toxic masculinity, but I think we sometimes do it to ourselves when we're timid or we're intimidated to be proud of who we are. I'm proud that my mother and father named me, and it means something to me when I go out in the world that I better do something worthwhile and respect will be remembered because somehow or some way, whether it's good or bad, my name's going to be spoken about and it's going to be remembered. So I'm going to take pride in everything I do and try to lead by example instead of being a piss poor example of what not to be, because we have plenty of that. But I think more of us need to just be able to stand up and say, you know what, it's not a bad thing to have pride. It's not a bad thing to have self-respect. And it's good to stand for something in a time where a lot of people are, timid to stand up for what they believe because they think we kind of have to be herded around, like proverbial, some other stuff going on. So I would say, doesn't matter, man, woman, child, strong, weak, everybody has something they need to work on to get better. But man, start having some respect and some oomph when you say your name. Be prideful and proud of who you are. Be proud of that legacy that your mom and dad bestowed upon you, you know?
Words to live by for sure. Great advice. All right. On a little more lighthearted note, Justin, you mentioned
Yeah.
before you grew up watching World's Strongest Man. Who did you watch? Who did you root for the most?
Oh, I was a Mariusz Pudzianowski fan. That guy, you know, he always looked like an off-season bodybuilder, or like he could go compete at any time on a bodybuilding stage. But, you know, how strong he was, how fast he was. And, you know, he wasn't always the biggest guy out there either, even though he looked like it. But he was typically one of the smaller guys out there, weight-wise. You know, now, and I've always been a big fan of Kaz. Because I've got to meet him a few times, talk to him. I thought that was just probably the coolest thing ever. You know, watching him compete in his, you know, earlier years in World's Strongest Man, with his intensity that he approached every event at. You know, Madness for Magnuson, you know, another one of the greats. God, there's so many to name. Honestly,
You gotta tip your hat like to Kaz though.
Oh yeah, you know that guy.
There's a record for someone who had, and I say this jokingly, if there was a record for someone who had more lifts that were world record that weren't caught on camera, it'd be Kaz.
I was waiting for the power lifter to name Kaz.
No, someone was saying that about shirt curl. Like Kaz, like I have a 400-pound shirt curl, but it wasn't on tape. Yeah, I think he has like 1,050-pound deadlift that wasn't caught on tape, a 700-pound bench press. I mean, it's funny when you get around Kaz; these are all stories you're gonna hear.
Oh yeah,
and he's dead serious. He's like, hey, if they had camera, if they had, you know, Polaroid back in my day, we would have. No, but he's a great personality for both. I think he's one of the guys that was probably one of the best for both powerlifting and for strongman.
He had some incredible car deadlifts at World's Strongest Man. But go ahead, Justin. I cut you off.
Oh no, I was going to say, like I said, and meeting him in person too. Yeah, I mean, even recently, the guy's still a big dude. You can see he's still training. He's putting in the time. He's putting in the work. You know, he's not one of those that when he was in his prime competing that just kind of deflated and went away. You know what I mean? He kept up with it. You know, dude still got massive arms on him, and he still got a major love for the sport and all the competitors as well. You know, when he gets into telling stories, it's not, you know, of course you're going to hear all the famous Kaz stories like LeRoy was saying, but he's also telling the stories about the guys that he competed with. You know, like big old OD, probably one of the strongest guys in the world who never actually won it.
Well, wait a minute now. Like in the spirit of our hearts, he won it. Like,
oh yeah, I mean,
Odie Wilson should be a World's Strongest Man champion. Like, let's
I agree 100%. And you know, having somebody his size carry a big old damn stack of bricks and tell them to run around a track. Come on, you know, you can't have somebody doing that. That ain't got nothing to do with strength. That man don't need to be running a lap around a track.
No slight on John Paul Sigmarsson, but Odie Wilson was screwed that year.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. I don't think there's anybody out there who wouldn't, you know, agree with you on that one.
I got a quick question while we have, because as from a fan standpoint, and not to get into the political ramifications, but it hasn't really been announced per se. But do you think, and all it's supposed to be that the Arnold is going to be the Arnold this year, as far as the strongman side, if everything holds with Brian and Redcon and some of the other, do you think Rogue is going to follow suit? Because I'm not in the sport, so I don't hear it. I just hear the speculations from other people who are fans.
So from what I've been told, and whether this is official or not, or rumor, the Arnold for the strongman side of it, I've been told it is no longer a thing. I don't quite believe that, but I think Rogue, with their competition that they're doing, is pretty much replacing that for the pros. Nothing has been said about the amateur because, right there with pros, they got the world championship for the amateurs there as well. I've competed at that, a few years ago. Probably one of the most fun competitions I've ever done before, just because of all the people you get to meet from literally all over the world coming in to compete. Like I said, with the whole world situation that happened last year, they were able to do that competition, but no spectators, no crowds. Pretty boring competition to watch, actually, in my opinion. And I hated it for the athletes because, compete in front of a crowd is totally different than, going out and doing something when you get that many people cheering you on. Like I said, for this year, it was definitely a no-go for the Arnold. That's one of the reasons why they actually allowed some of us amateurs to compete at America's Strongest Man, since that was another competition that had been taken away for amateurs to earn their pro status. Because right now, other than, they continue this trend with America's Strongest Man, Nationals is the only way for amateurs to get the pro card. So I'm hoping that Rogue, because like I said, right now they're dealing more with the elite pros in the world with their competition, that they will bring in the amateurs as well, just so that we have something as well to compete in. And, for future amateurs as well, with Brian Shaw and his classic that he's doing, I got a feeling that's going to blow up. I think it's already gotten bigger than it was the year before. I think it's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger because Brian Shaw is, truly one of those guys. He wants to see this sport evolve, constantly. He wants to bring in more people. He wants to get the exposure out to the people so they can see what's going on in the sport. And he's got that passion and that desire and the willingness to go out there and do what it takes. So I think his competition, the Arnold's always going to be there, but for the strongman side of it, I think Brian Shaw is actually going to start taking over with his classic.
Yeah, I mean, the Arnold has always had the reputation of like World's Strongest Man is World's Strongest Man, but the Arnold's is the hard, heavy show. I think now the Shaw Classic is the hard, heavy show.
100%. It is, people have their opinions on it. It's always been said that, yes, you got the World's Strongest Man. Whoever wins that, they earn the title. But in all reality is who wins the Arnold. That's kind of your unspoken World's Strongest Man. The lifts are way heavier. You're competing against the top 10 in the world. Like you earn your spot at the Arnold. You're not just picked out because you're popular. The World's Strongest Man, once again, opinions may vary. It's not what it used to be. If you got 1 million followers on Instagram, you can probably make it the World's Strongest Man.
You try not to say it. You want me to say it for you because I know you were competing, so you didn't hear the commentary. But Anthony Furman mentioned it a few times on the commentary. Marcus Crowder and Wesley Claiborne have been slighted.
I think Wesley, he's been last year. He was supposed to be competing at World's Strongest Man. My opinion, I feel that he got screwed out of that due to a false positive on a certain test, where others were also had the same false positive, if you want to call it that, but yet we're still allowed to compete. I won't get in that whole controversy thing of it, but he was sent home. Wesley, he's one of those of the people that deserve to be there from, like I said, just, the hard work and everything else, not just because they, like I said, they got so many followers on Instagram, on YouTube, they're on TV, and now they've just become a name. It is what it is. I understand it. The World's Strongest Man is a production. It's not about what's fair, who deserves to be there. It's about making money. They want people that's going to recognize the top names there so they can watch them. They don't want somebody that, who has been working their butt off, for the past several years and has earned their spot or their right to be there, but they don't have any social media presence whatsoever. Nobody knows who that person is unless you're in the strongman world. So, like I said, I got different opinions on it than some other people. That's why I said earlier, I am more focused on getting with Strongman Championship League than I am trying to get the World's Strongest Man. And some people may think that that's backwards. You should be striving for that title. You can still get there from Strongman Championship League, but, it's not all about production with them.
I would love to see you with them. They put on some great shows. We actually just had Travis Ortmeyer and Jonathan Cotton, who did the team competition with them on our show recently, to talk about that.
Oh yeah, like I said, I was watching it. They do. They put on some great competitions. They truly take care of the athletes as well. To whereas World's Strongest Man, and you can see like some of these guys when they do their backstage videos on YouTube. They'll be, all right, we got 20 minutes for your next event. Then before they even get a chance to warm up, somebody's running back there saying, you got to go now. Come on, we got to go. We're about to start filming. Because there's no care for the athlete. That's why you always have people getting hurt and injured at World's Strongest Man. You got to give these guys, yes, they're professionals. You got to give these guys, at some kind of time to warm up, to get ready for these lifts, because it's still heavy weight.
And sometimes it's kind of the opposite. They warm up and then they're not ready for you. You cool down and then you got to warm up again.
Exactly. And like I said, just the whole process of that whole thing, I'm not a big fan of it.
Yeah, I mean, not this year, but going back to World's Strongest Man 2020, the number of bicep tears tells the whole story.
Oh, yeah. And last minute, it's like, well, this 1,000-pound yoke ain't heavy enough. Let's add, 300 more pounds to it. I'm like, seriously? 1,000-pound yoke is heavy for anybody. You got people going out there. Thor, I think he even tore. He tore something in his foot. What was it? I can't think of it. That plantar fascia thing in the bottom of your foot, he tore that doing the yoke because they added a couple more 100 pounds to it last minute. They didn't think it was heavy enough. I mean, that's ridiculous. Not giving these guys enough time to warm up, and just increasing the weight. last minute, not even, some of these guys probably weren't even told that weight was being increased. And I know this may sound silly, but if you tell me I'm about to go do an 800-pound yoke, all right, I'm mentally getting prepared to go out there and do an 800-pound yoke. Last minute, you told me, oh, we just upped it to 1,000. I can still do a 1,000-pound yoke, but I got to somewhat mentally prepare for this. I'm just not going to jump underneath this thing and take off running. And I know, every athlete is different. Some mentally prepare more so than others, but I can't think of any athlete that doesn't at least think about it for a brief period of time, and just get themselves amped up for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, LeRoy, just to answer your question a little more thoroughly from earlier, there's even another thing called the Giants Live Arnold Sports Festival UK, which is not the regular Arnold's.
Yeah.
I think it's good that more and more things are coming out, especially being televised. I will say, though, over in Europe, they love the sport way more than it is here in America. I think you can ask any strongman competitor. You can even ask Travis. He's been over there. He competed with Strongman Championship League and also other different federations as well all over the world. It's a 9-day difference. They just love strength sports, period. Not just strongman, but even powerlifting as well. Just more so over there they do than here.
Yeah, even some of the guys you just competed with, not in your weight class, but Johnny Waz, who was middleweight, didn't he just win in Ukraine? Didn't he just win the Masters Worlds?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Wesley last year went to Russia and competed. Ended up getting third. And like I said, they just treat you. It's a 9-day difference. They there was a little bit of rushing going on. It's time to go. It's time to go. Because once again, it is still a production at the end of the day. But, there was more care for the athletes there. Now, of course, being in Russia, the Russians did cheat a little bit. Is what it is. But he still got on that podium and got third place. So they told him, all right, you can come back next year. We're going to make sure that don't happen again.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we've been going for quite a while this evening. We probably should wind it down. Typically toward the end, we give you guys a chance to talk about exciting stuff you got coming for the future, sponsors you want to shout out. So whoever would like to go first, please feel free.
LeRoy, you're good to go if you want to go first, man.
Just got another Arnold qualifier coming up. We're going to be competing here in Austin, Texas. At an undisclosed event. It's going to be with Big Tex. And a huge shout out to Go Strength at equipment and clothing. Can't say enough about the company. It's an awesome clothing company, and pretty much that's just it. So you guys can catch me mostly. I do lives every day on my IG. You guys can catch me at LW the Machine, and just want to pay it forward and say thank you guys for being awesome hosts. Justin, it's been a pleasure to hear your insightfulness of the sport. Congratulations on the pursuit of your record, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
And same here as what I got coming up is at Mammoth in January in Kentucky. Going for that record again for the Mauser block press. I know if Steve Smith is healthy, he'll be there. I'm sure there'll probably be a couple more this year or next year, and I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a good one. I'm going to take the rest of this time, train for it. Like I said, saying it now, 400 block will happen for the end of this year. I'm going to make that happen. And as I just greatly appreciate y'all having me on here. LeRoy, I watch your videos, all that. I'm a big fan of everything. Continue watching and doing your thing. Definitely, enjoyed talking to everybody, getting to meet everybody. Hopefully I'll get to meet y'all in person one day. I'm sure we'll see each other at some event or some competition.
Mm-hmm. Likewise.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I'm doing color commentary live at South Carolina Strongest Man and Woman in February, Justin, if you want to go throw your hat in the ring over there. Yeah, well,
you never know.
Yeah. I know the state rep, so I got an in. Awesome. Well, hey, guys, it was a real pleasure gaining all of your insights from your respective portions of strength sports. Really great to get the kind of two sides, powerlifting and strongman today. We really do appreciate you both joining, Justin Kealhofer and LeRoy the Machine Walker. Thank you both so much for joining this evening, and hopefully we meet again sometime. Have a great evening.
All right. Thank you, guys.
You too. See y'all.
All right. See you.
Bye.